Hi, this is Stephan Costa speaking to you today just outside of the beautiful Boise State campus on this wonderful March day. I'd like to speak a little bit about March Madness as well as a little bit on scandal. Now, the story I'm going to talk to you today reminds me a little bit about Watergate. And bear with me, I know this is a bit of a stretch. But number one, it involves a national institution. The White House is off the hook this time. Today I'm talking about the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, and more specifically their sports program, and more specifically than that, their football as well as their basketball program. Now, this is the same Tar Heels basketball program that has produced such greats as Vince Carter and James Worthy and the Michael Jordan. Number two, I want to talk about a couple of reporters, not Woodward and Bernstein this time. In fact, they're not even a team. The first reporter is a local reporter from the Charlotte area, Raleigh area. And the second is a national reporter that I think you might recognize. And number three, we're going to talk about a whistleblower because all great stories have whistleblowers. Now, in 2011, the Tar Heel football program is already under probation. It seems like a couple of their players have tweeted from a sports agent's party down in Florida, which is a big no-no to the NCAA, so they slap them on the wrist. They take away a few scholarships and put them on probation for the year. But in September 2011, Dan Kane from the Raleigh Observer starts writing some pretty interesting articles, and I'll paraphrase from Dan's articles. The first is about a Marvin Austin, who before his freshman year starts taking a 400 level course in the African American Studies program, and not only takes it but passes it with colors. This raises a few eyebrows, as it would. That's a pretty high course for a high school senior to be taking. And so Dan starts doing a little bit of investigating and comes up with the fact that there's an awful lot of student athletes taking this African American Studies program. So, as a way of stopping the bleeding, the University of North Carolina does an internal investigation, and they hire Jim Martin. Now, Jim is a former governor of North Carolina as well as an alumni of North Carolina, lending some credence to this investigation. On December 19th, 2012, he releases the report, and I'll paraphrase, quote, 40% of the students who were enrolled in this African American Studies program were in fact student athletes. Of those classes, a lot of them seem to lack an actual professor. And they also seem to only require one paper to be entered, a final paper for these classes. Also, dozens of instances of 8 professors who apparently unwittingly and indirectly were signing these papers because it wasn't their signatures. Their signatures were being forged on these papers, and these papers changed the grades of these student athletes to the better. And, quote, 106 of these grade changes in papers were unauthorized. 454 were potentially unauthorized. 373 of them were inconclusive, and only 203 were actually legit. That's pretty shocking, all these allegations against a major institution like North Carolina. The story gets worse. This is where Sarah Elizabeth Gannon comes in from CNN, but formerly from the Patriot News. Now, you may remember Sarah Elizabeth as the reporter who broke the Sandusky scandal in Penn State. She won many, many awards, including the Sidney Award for Social Consciousness for reporting, as well as the Pulitzer Prize. She was the 3rd youngest to ever win that. She's working now with CNN, and this is where Mary Willingham comes in. Mary Willingham is an academic tutor for student athletes at the University of North Carolina. And she's our whistleblower. She goes to Sarah Elizabeth, who writes in early 2004, July 15th, 2004 is when it comes out for CNN, a scathing paper, and I quote, "These are some of the allegations that Miss Willingham levels against the institution. She maintains that a team maintained computer containing a bunch of papers that were previously written and just slightly altered to be submitted with a few cosmetic changes for the athletes, and this was available to all the athletes." She also says that she did a study between 2004 and 2012, and in this study, a full 60% of the student athletes read at a 4th to 8th grade level. Imagine that. An additional 10% read at a 3rd grade level or less. That's 70% of the students that read at an 8th grade level or less. That is amazingly shocking. But true to form, and in the North Carolina way, they censor her. They shut her up. They don't let her talk about her own paper. They say that these allegations are inconclusive, that they possibly were misinvestigated, that they're investigated wrong. It's not until March of 2014 that they have to give Miss Willingham $350,000 in the settlement for their actions and their defamation of character of her. Now, the NCAA has been doing an investigation since 2012 on these allegations, but funny, I just watched the University of North Carolina beat Harvard yesterday in the NCAA March Madness tournament. I was rooting for Harvard. Personally, I don't think they're as academically fraudulent. And being a student, and not just a student, but an older one, I appreciate my scholastic studies. And it really, really irks me because every grade that I get, I earn. I may not be the greatest orator. This may not be the greatest speech, but it's mine. I quoted what I had to quote. I cited what I had to cite. But basically, it's in my words. And it really irks me. No, it ticks me off that these kids were not only getting free grades, they were getting sham degrees. What ticks me off even more is that with these sham degrees that aren't even really functional, they're probably going to get jobs because of their names, because they were University of North Carolina basketball and football stars. The ones that are remembered will probably get hired and get paid way better than I will ever get paid. But I have my conscience. I know the grades that I get, I earn. So I go to the grave with that. Thank you for listening. This has been Stephan Costa talking about the North Carolina scandal.